is I am doing some subtle cleanups of the plants that have like half blooms and half freeze damage on them. I'm not cutting them completely to the ground because there's still pollinators actively using them, and I don't have as many places to discreetly do the chop and drop method, but I'm going to just give it a shot over here because I know that the little bit of blooms that are left on here could be used by some honeybees that I'm still seeing in the area. So I really always prefer to do the chop and drop, but space doesn't always allow for it. It's a newer garden. It doesn't have as many discrete areas. Now right here is some periwinkle that I'm going to just take off some of these nipped areas and then shape just a little bit. And then I am going to chop up the debris for this because these will definitely reseed and possibly give us our annuals for next year without having to go purchase any. So after I come through here with my blower, I think this will look a little bit better. I'm going to clean up some of this heather, and working around this yucca is a little tricky, but what I do is, since I have pants on, I'm kind of using my leg to find the line between them so I can pull the heather away from it without having to reach in and possibly stab myself. Okay, so when I tackle these heathers, I try to get as close to the base as I can and make a little ponytail. This one is extremely big, so I can't make, and I don't have the cutters to cut through much at a time, but I definitely want to just take these back a little bit so they're not as unsightly. And I can see they are reseeding pretty heavily around the garden. So if you do grow heather, keep an eye out for those sprouts because they will reseed. They can reseed and put out a new plant with blooms the very same day, like not the same day, the same season. You know, sometimes within a couple months, you can see a little baby heather coming up with a flower on it from the time you planted it. So just keep your eye out for it. If you are wanting to expand the heather in your garden, it's going to definitely help you get that accomplished without you having to spend any more money. So for this heather, I'm just taking off the most outer part of the plant that got the most freeze damage and giving it a nice little shape. So at least it looks a little cleaner in the garden for this time of year. Okay, so I'm gonna show you, there's some heather that's reseeding over here that's coming up and sprouting that I wanna show you to help you identify what it might look like. So here's the seedlings right here. These are the seedlings of heather that have dropped off the plant from whenever I divided it about a month ago. A bunch of seedlings have popped up. The first set of leaves are kind of roundish, but the second set of leaves, you'll see if you look closely, will develop a little more pointier habit. And right here, you can see there's one that has an actual flower. It's got probably 6 or 7 sets of leaves in, and there's a little bitty bug on there already pollinating, but that is to give you an idea of how the heather will reseed itself and kind of come up everywhere if you let it. I could fill in this whole area with heather if I wanted, but not looking for that right now, but I just wanted to share. In case you are looking to expand the heather in your garden, that's one thing to consider. And you don't have to make any effort to harvest the seeds. You can just chop up the flowers. When you trim the plant, you just take those flowers and those stems, you chop them up wherever you want them to reseed, and they'll do the rest on their own. Now, obviously, I can't let them all grow up and be mature plants, but I just wanted to share the idea. I definitely can't let those grow. I will just rake them up and cover them with more mulch so they can't continue to grow. I think I've pretty much run out of room and places that I could chop and drop it, at least here. I'll have to look around and see because I definitely don't want it to look like I'm leaving a mess. Once this garden gets a little more established, I'll probably have more places like behind the sunshine ligustrum that I could incorporate that method here, but as of now, there's really not enough places for me to do it. For this, I may want to get the bigger pruners. I don't know yet. Now, a lot of people get very nervous when it comes to making cuts on their plants, and that's good to some extent, to be a little nervous, but don't be nervous to the extent that you just don't do it. Don't let yourself be held back in, you know, growing as a gardener because you're scared of messing something up. If you've seen somebody do it, you know, online, like I'm doing right here, and I'm not taking any special care, and I'm not telling you, you know, hey, you have to cut this particular wood in this place. You really cannot mess it up on this plant. This is a very tough plant. It's extremely forgiving, and it benefits more from being cut than from not being cut. So that's something to keep in mind if you're a first-time gardener. Well, some of these lantanas really got zapped. Those I'm gonna take all the way to the ground. The ones that got zapped, they're gonna go all the way close to the ground. When the foliage is burnt back or crispy or brown all the way to the bottom of the stalk, that's when I go ahead and cut the stalk at that point. But if it's just, you know, a few areas towards the end of the branch, then I'll just be selective and clear out that area. Just for the sake of balance and uniformness, I'm going to clean up this lantana just to the height of that one. I've definitely reached my limit of chop and drop space in this garden. It didn't take much. Anyway, I'm gonna be a little less aggressive with the chop and drop just because I don't want it to look untidy. I've been working on thinning out this grassy section of these Liriopes that need to be divided. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, there we go. I know I look silly. Okay. So here's one clump, and there's another half of it right there. It's not half, but a portion, and I feel like that's a good chunk for progress at this point in time anyway. Now, without this big clump there, the sprinkler will be able to do a much better job at getting all these plants watered. I'm happy with that progress. I need to get some scissors. I think I'm gonna just get some scissors. Maybe my cutters can come in here. I'm gonna trim around these. Hopefully the mulch will be dry enough. I know there's some bags of mulch over there. I'm gonna see if I can get one bag of mulch over here to put in the spot that I cleared out, because we know I disturbed that seed bank, and right now this seed bank is jam-packed with nutsedge seeds, and that's what's actually leading to this division, or, you know, helping promote it, because from the yard guys weed eating the nutsedge and broadcasting the weeds. So this whole garden has a huge seed bank of nutsedge going on, and there's really not much to be done about that other than, you know, pre-emergent and constant babysitting, because I mean, you can't eliminate it. You have to incorporate practices that don't contribute to a bad seed bank, and that was not done here for many years before I got here. No telling how long, but every time I try to do the natural thing and not use pre-emergence, nutsedge shoots up from everywhere, and before I can get back in time, it's actually seeding. So what I'm trying to do is thin this out to where we can put enough mulch around it to keep that seed bank suppressed. And then on the inside of the crown of these Liriopes, the ones that are going to stay here, I'm just having to do the granular pre-emergent. I'm trying to just narrow it down to just a couple times a year, but I'm being very selective with what weed management products are being used in certain areas of the garden. I'm not doing one type. I'm not doing just one post-emergent and one pre-emergent, or just herbicides or just organic. It's actually a combination of everything to reduce the demand and reduce the need for everything, if that makes sense. But it's a very messy and ugly situation. You can see these pictures from about maybe a year ago when I discovered the problem and started trying to bring it to the client's attention. I want to say it took several months before they understood what I was the point I was trying to make, and why it was so important to get on top of that. So it just kept happening and compounding. The seed bank has been piled on in this place for years. So that's what we're dealing with. And that's it for this edition of Garden Beauty. And as always, feel free to leave your questions or suggestions in the comment section below, and I'll see you again next time.